What do you want?
Um, I want to invest. How can I invest?
Well, do you have any money to invest?
Yep. Say I have a solid 10 grand right now,
10
and I'm like,
grand.
okay,
You want to invest?
I'm gonna start just investing it. I want to invest it. What should I do?
So my reaction to that question is it depends on what you want to accomplish. Do you want the highest? I'm assuming you want the highest return possible from your 10 grand.
I just want to make as much money as I possibly
From your
can
10 grand.
from my 10. I want to turn my 10 grand into 100 grand.
You want okay. 10 grand into 100 grand, that's a 10x.
That is 10 times 10,000.
So, how do you do that and what kind of time frame? How fast do you want to do that?
As fast as I possibly can.
Okay.
But your goals need to be specific and measurable, right? So I need to have a specific date and time that I reach $100,000.
Yeah, a year, 10 years, 5 years. What do you think?
Let's say I wanted to do it in 2 years,
Okay.
maybe 1 year.
10 grand to 100 grand in 1 or 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's insane. It's better than Warren Buffett, who's considered the most successful investor of all time, right?
Sean Covey turned his dad's company into 100.
Here we go.
He 10x'd it in the millions.
Here we go. Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of the famous Stephen Covey, got
Oh,
involved.
it's not Sean?
No, got involved in his dad's business when it was worth $2 million. 3 years later, merged it with Franklin for $140 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's better than turning 10,000 into 100,000.
Right. So we're just taking that down to something way smaller and just
Okay.
doing 10 grand to 100 grand. So that's easy. I'm smarter than Stephen Covey. How can I do it?
Wow, that's a bold statement.
No, I'm just kidding, but I can do it. So
Okay, yes,
what
you
would I
can do it. Yes, you can do it. So I don't know everything, but here are some thoughts on that. Number one, people, when they talk about investing money, usually talk about ROI, a return on investment, and it's usually measured in percentage. Have you ever heard of the rule of 72?
Yes.
Okay, rule of 72, just to recap, is if you have the return that you're getting on your money, let's say it's 12%. If you take 72 divided by 12, it gives you roughly the number of years it's going to take to double your money. Okay, do the math, it works usually. So if you're getting a 6% return, it's going to take 12 years to double your money. If you get a 12% return, it's going to take 6 years to double your money, and so on. You get 22%, 23% return, like you can get in residential real estate if you do it really smart. You can double your money every 3 to 3.5 years. Okay, so 10 grand going to 100 grand, how many times you got to double that? First you go 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 80, 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 80.
3.25.
Okay,
Just
so,
kidding.
so it's got to double like 3.5 times.
Yeah.
And even at an aggressive rate of like 20%, you're talking about, a good 12, 15 years before you turn 10 grand into 100 grand.
Yeah, that's for... No.
Okay, so you can...
There's plenty of people who have done that and done more,
Okay.
right?
But we're talking about, so right now, I'm doing this on purpose. I'm talking about traditional investing.
Oh, okay,
Because
yeah.
when people talk about
You're right.
investing, they're usually talking about taking that money and putting it to work somehow. So really, we have a choice where we're going to put our money to work. And what's fascinating to me is people, when they talk about investing, they're talking about like, oh, I'm going to trade crypto, and here's a hack, or I'm going to day trade stocks.
Day trade, yeah.
Or I'm going to get into like trading options. Man, options is where it's at. And it's, okay. Yeah. Usually, guess what? My opinion, after dabbling in some of that stuff and losing money when I was your age that I didn't have to lose, is shortcuts.
There's no shortcuts in life.
Maybe there's very few shortcuts that are worth the risk in life, my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So you want to go buy a bunch of stock on margin, or you're going to double down and buy, you're going to take your 10 grand and buy options that 3 months from now, when they expire, they could be worth 100 grand. You can do that. Guess what? 95% of the time, you're going to lose your 10 grand. Or 98% of the time, 2% of the time, you're going to hit. So if you did that like 100 times, your return is probably only going to be around 10 or 12%, right? Because if you're either going to get insanely lucky and it's going to pop, and then maybe it's going to go to your head and you're going to have this huge ego and you're going to think you deserved it, like I did in my 20s when I was making a lot of money in commercial real estate, and I didn't realize just the market was going crazy and I was benefiting from it. I was lucky. but it went to my head. And so it's not a sustainable solution. So if you want a sustainable investment strategy that has an acceptable level of risk, that's repeatable, okay, well then we gotta have a different conversation. Somebody in their 20s that wants to invest, my opinion, the absolute highest return on their money is investing in themselves. So how do you take 10 grand and invest it in yourself and then turn that into 100 grand? That's the question. There was a time I joined Entrepreneur Organization Accelerator Group. Accelerator was for companies that had at least 250,000 in revenue but under $1 million in revenue. And the goal was to help those businesses grow to over $1 million in revenue. And the guy that interviewed me when I was coming on board to the group, he said, if you don't do this in 3 years, you get kicked out. And I was nervous because I joined, our business was like making 300,000 gross revenue, right? And I was nervous because I was like, oh shoot, in 3 years I got to be at $1 million or I'm get kicked out of this thing. One day in one of the required meetings, some guy got up. He looked like he was younger than me. I thought, you kind of size up people and you're like, I'm smarter than that guy. Like maybe a little ego there. I feel ashamed to admit that. But I was like, this guy doesn't seem any smarter than me. He looks younger than me. He gets up and he's presenting to all of us. What does he know that I don't know? He puts a number on the board. It's like $27,348.67. It's the exact number. And it was for an object lesson. And he's like, well, what do you think this number is? People are like, I don't know. That's how much you paid your first employee last year, or that's how much you made your first year in business. Nope. That's how much I invested in myself last year. It's 27 grand. This is like 8 years ago. And his business was not very successful at that point. That was a huge chunk of his income that he had invested in himself. He'd hired coaches. He was part of mentorship programs. He'd joined Entrepreneur Organization. He had all these things, right? And he said, do you think that was worth it? What was fascinating to me is at that time, I was too cheap to even think about investing a fourth of that amount in my education. But what was fascinating to me is that his business was growing much more rapidly than mine was. He seemed to have his act together. He seemed to connect with people. His Design Pickle, look it up. Unlimited free design.
And that's his?
And that's his company. And they just blew up. And guess what? It was not an accident. His investment of time and money in himself paid massive dividends.
How do you think to start something like that?
You know how he thought it? Oh. He'd already built a marketing company that had failed and he went bankrupt once already. Painful learning experience. Then he hired a business coach. And part of that coaching program, he was in a mentorship group. Over a weekend, they did this really intensive thing. And during that, when he was doing all this exploration, talking and connecting with people and journaling and doing all these exercises, the idea came to him. Unlimited free design, subscription-based company, and then he launched it.
What did he do to get money after he went bankrupt to start that company?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Did you just work at Taco Bell real fast, or what?
That's an interesting question, and it's a question that I think a lot of people would ask that have a scarcity mindset. And
no, it's just like, okay, he went bankrupt and then started another business.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. How do you not do it? You just do it.
Yeah, you just start printing money out of your own printer.
No, you don't have to. Starting a business doesn't require money. Starting a business requires an idea.
But you said he hired coaches like immediately after and started doing all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wanted to hire a coach right now, I couldn't because I don't have the money to.
Totally disagree. Money is abundant. It's everywhere. That seems like a weird statement for me to make. You shut down. You're like, yeah, okay, that's weird. Says the guy who has money. Yeah. But it is actually everywhere. So consider this guy. He went bankrupt, but what did he have? He had tremendous learning and he had contacts. You said that you win through people, right? Mm-hmm. Guess how many people there are out there willing to take a chance on a budding entrepreneur that seems really confident and willing to swing for the fences? There's tons of money out there for someone like that. So this guy totally broke, creditors, got divorced, whatever, even had some addiction problems that he shared with us very openly about. He got money somehow to invest in himself. Maybe it didn't come from himself. Maybe he assembled a team of people that had this a similar vision to his, and with no money they started working on a business concept. And maybe he had a mentor from before or someone he had just connected with that's like, I will give you 30,000 seed money for this idea. And then he started investing a portion of that money, reinvesting in himself, accelerating his learning and growth. There's 100 different ways of getting money that you don't think you have to invest in yourself. We talked about in another podcast, we talked about people going to university, like what a huge waste of time that is. There's broke people that go spend $100,000 learning at an institution. There's definitely a way for broke people to spend $27,000 learning on their own.
Yeah.
There's a means to doing that.
So number one thing to invest in at an early age is yourself.
Yes.
And learning. Not necessarily by going to college, but anything to expand your
Absolutely.
connections and knowledge.
And you know what some of the most valuable things that you can learn are, and this might sound weird, is how to get out of your own way. How to challenge and overcome your own limiting mindsets that are holding you back. And one of the most important ones, I think, is the fear of failure and the fear of bruising your ego. If somebody can get out of their own way and feel compelled to fail faster and fail better, they're going to learn faster and it's going to be more enjoyable to them. There's so much unlocking the mindsets that cause us to be fearful is the most powerful learning that a young person can do at a young age. Because if you can get out of the fear, or you can face the fear with courage, and you can just move forward even though you're afraid, and you can fail and endure the pain of it, but you fail more and more and more, and it becomes less and less painful, and you start picking up momentum, that's where the magic happens.
Okay.
I'm talking too much.
So
need to
you
talk
think,
more.
what's the second most important thing, best thing to invest in?
Okay.
So yourself is number one.
Yeah, the second most important thing that you could possibly invest in is yourself.
So what about real estate? I already invested in myself. I'm going to keep doing it. I want to make money.
Before we go to real estate,
now I want to actually start making money.
Before we go to real estate, can I ask another question? Because I'm fascinated by this question. What is the right amount of money to invest in yourself when you're young?
It depends on how much your time is worth.
Well, so this is a really tricky question, right? Because should you put 100% of your income reinvested into learning?
That's what Alex Hormozy thinks.
Should you put 200% of your income back into learning? Like what is the appropriate amount to invest in yourself at a young age?
He said your money right now means absolutely nothing. There's no point in saving it. What 10 grand is going to mean absolutely nothing to you. That's no money.
Okay.
So
another way,
put all of it into it, because there's no point in it just sitting there, because it's like he said that's the worst thing you can do is just keep your money sitting in one spot. It's not going to do anything.
There's this guy that goes to our church. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. I won't name his name, but he assembled a portfolio of over 200 properties in a span of 5 years. Himself, that he owns himself. Not talking partners. Like he's got one partner, but he doesn't own these in like 30 or 40 different partnerships, right? He did this himself. He shared in one of his YouTube videos that very early on he invested $75,000 in a real estate investing mentorship program. That's an insane amount of money.
Why would it cost money?
The people that were willing to teach that program knew their value and they charged what they were worth, and he spent 75 grand. But guess what? From things that he learned and connections he met there, he built a 200 property portfolio. And then the market went up and the guy's got lots of millions now.
Yeah.
So was that worth it? Here's something else.
Definitely.
This book I just finished listening to, Who Not How, the author said that he joined, and I'm going to get the name wrong, some mastermind group. It's a well-known mastermind group. And the entry fee to get into the mastermind group was $25,000. Entry fee. And he said that the first meeting he showed up to, he was fascinated by how many other people in the room were overly concerned about how they were going to get the return on their $25,000 because they just put down 25 grand.
Yeah.
He had a different mindset, which was very fascinating, and I think illustrates how powerful mindset can be. His mindset was, who here can I give to create meaningful and lasting investment partnerships with? Who can I just paid 25 grand to join this organization. Who can I give to in this organization and benefit their lives in a not seemingly transactional way so that they feel like giving back to me? And guess what? He met the Dan Sullivan, the founder of Strategic Coach, one of the most preeminent coaches of entrepreneurship in America and throughout the world, and then eventually co-authored multiple best-selling books with Dan Sullivan. Wow. 25 grand, met Dan Sullivan.
Yeah.
But he wasn't thinking about what can I get out of this? Shoot, I just put down 25 grand. I'm going to lose that. Like what kind of transactions do I need to engage in right here in order to not, to get the most out of this?
He basically did the same thing. He just did it he was also thinking, how can I get a return on my investment that I just made of 25 grand? But he thought of it differently.
Exactly. And that slight pivot in mindset can make all the difference. So what were we talking about?
Investing.
Yeah, okay, we're going to
So that was a great investment for him.
That was a fantastic investment. But it wasn't just that he invested the money, he invested the time, and he had the right attitude about it. He had an abundance mentality that he brought to that investment.
So is it a good idea for like one of the first things you invest in to buy a house? Or to buy a house?
Okay, so after you've leveled up your character, meaning you've invested enough in yourself that your income potential is high, and you're throwing off cash. Whatever you're doing is throwing off extra cash. Then absolutely.
Extra. Why not that be the first thing you do? Is just buy a rental property.
Okay, sorry. What I mean by extra cash is you live on this, and then you're making this, so this is your extra cash. So you've leveled yourself up. You're not just making 50 grand a year, you're making 150 grand a year. And so that's throwing off extra cash.
From
you're building
doing
up a down payment.
Not working a job, that's for sure.
There's jobs that pay $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year.
That you go to college for.
Not necessarily. Well, some of them you do.
90%, I think. There's not many jobs that you don't go to college for that pays you 300 grand a year.
Running a business for someone. I could hire a
for someone, you're for yourself.
Well, for someone else though. You could be hired to run somebody else's business.
With no college.
Yeah. If you have a track record. If you for example, somebody doesn't go to college, but they're a rock star salesperson, which by the way, everybody that wants to own a business should learn sales. No question. Okay? So invest in your education, but also invest with your time in learning how to sell. Every personality type can learn how to sell, and it's vital if you want to own a business someday, in my opinion. So somebody like really applies themselves. They learn how to sell. They go crush it selling for some company that didn't require a college education to get hired. Then they take that experience and they go to somebody else and they say, hey, you've got a business that's a $2 million business. I know how to engineer a sales strategy and a marketing strategy that'll get you up to $8 million. Hire me as your marketing director. Here's my references. Here's my proof. This is what I've done. And if you impress them enough, they'll give you a chance at that. You might fail a few times, but eventually you'll connect with somebody and you will propel them to $10 million and you'll make $400,000 a year probably. But because that's a really high level value add. So not every high paying job requires a college education, no.
Yeah, actually, while you were saying that, I realized, there's door-to-door salesmen who can earn over 6 figures a year.
The top real estate agents, the top solar salespeople, I mean, you name it. Somebody is selling yachts. If you get really good at sales and you find that that's your career path, figure out what's the biggest thing you can sell, right? Because it's...
Houses
Yeah,
Well, you were
houses,
selling commercial, so that's even
commercial
bigger.
real estate. I got into that in my 20s because
What's
I was
bigger
like,
than that?
I don't know, you can sell
Casinos.
skyscrapers,
Just
you can
kidding.
sell, yachts, you could
You can
sell.
sell skyscrapers.
Absolutely, that's commercial real estate. Yeah. If you're gonna sell something, sell the biggest thing you can.
But how do you get to be the person that sells it?
Oh, that's a whole
There's
career
like
path.
thousands of people that are like,
That's a whole
I want
career
to sell
path.
it.
There's a guy, when I was selling land, there was a guy so dominant in the Phoenix marketplace as a land broker that not only everybody knew about him, but he had most of the most valuable listings. He was just so dominant.
It's like the guy we met who's the king of Pierpont.
Yeah, exactly.
But how did he do that? How did he become that person?
Yeah. So
Do you know?
How do you become super dominant in your industry?
No. How do you get everyone to like exactly what you said? How did he do that?
Oh, that he became the absolute czar of all land
Yeah.
brokerage in the greater Phoenix area?
Yeah.
He'd been doing it for 30 plus years, and he was extremely good with people.
So he just really good people person.
100%.
Yeah, sales is all about your people skills anyway.
100%, yeah.
And your ability to manipulate.
Not manipulate, no.
If it's door to door, yes.
No, I see it completely differently. Sales is about communicating clearly the value to someone in a compelling, honest way that invites their trust and compels them to level up their life by buying whatever you have. Yeah. And also having the integrity that if it's not going to improve their life, you move on.
Right.
Yeah.
You convince them that it is going to improve their life. You just build value like crazy.
A good salesperson can convince people to buy when it doesn't improve their life, but
right.
but an honest salesperson, which I aspire to be an honest salesperson, always is going to limit themselves and say, I'm only going to do this if it's a win-win.
Really? So, like, there's a lot of times when I was doing door-to-door sales for pest control, and I would convince them that they actually needed pest control, and I could tell at the beginning they're like, I do not need it at all, but I got them to truly believe like that it was a necessity and they really needed it, and then they would wind up buying it. But I knew deep down, like, if I was them, I would not buy it. I would definitely not buy it, you know. But we were all taught, like, no, you build value, you use all the different tactics. Like, if it's a woman, you can use the fear tactic on them, you know, like all these different things. Like, go ask her to get you a glass of water and just like, you know, trick her brain.
We should do a whole separate episode about that, because sales is so important. And there's a fascinating book written by Robert Cialdini called Influence that talks about, the different ways that humans are influenced. But
Door-to-Door Millionaire is also really good.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right, so back to the trunk. $10,000 invested. Definitely invest in yourself. If you have $10,000 to invest that in yourself, and then go borrow another 10 grand and invest that in yourself too. I just spit everywhere.
Okay, so
invest 10 grand in yourself, and then invest even more than that in yourself.
Don't be thinking, I'm going to turn the 10 grand into 100 grand. I'm going to
turn the 10
I'm going to make the 10 grand disappear for a second, and then eventually it's just going to appear as 100 grand.
Think of it like investing is like pushing dollar bills into a machine that's going to kick out more money on the back end. You are that machine. Put it into you, and then it's going to multiply so much faster in the beginning.
Yeah, it's kind of like the experiment with the kids where there's like a marshmallow, and it's like, you sit here and stare at it for 30 minutes, and I'll come back and give you 2 marshmallows. Yep. It's like that 10 grand, you want to like immediately like...
You want to consume it, or you want to put it to work in some...
Yeah, you want to 10x it immediately. Like, oh, I'm going to try and buy, like, or just invest it. I'm going to do day trading. Try and just get my fastest return on money I possibly can.
Here's a thought that just came to me. I think maybe it's so tempting for people to look for these hacks where they can turn 10 grand into 100 grand because they don't have to work on themselves if there's some external investment, right? When you actually turn the focus inward, and you have to confront your fears and your limiting mindsets, and you actually have to do the work, that's hard. That's hard stuff. But that's where the real gains are made.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave it at that for now.
All right. Well, that concludes the podcast. I'm Dane. This is my dad, Mark. And We're posting every week, so subscribe to keep getting these, to keep watching them.
And thank you.
Yeah,
We hope to add value to your life.
yeah, and comment, and we will reply to every single one. Thank you.
Thanks.
Goodbye.